О, блин, с видео подключается, капец. I think we have one. Should I start? I don't know if we're waiting for more.
We can just start with the announcements and then we can get going. People will probably log on in the first few minutes as we're getting started, but I think it's okay to get started. We've got a group here. Good morning, everybody. Well, good morning from Connecticut.
Good morning. It is a rainy morning here. Welcome everyone to our Yukon Neurology IMG webinar. And thank you so much for joining us today. I don't know what all time zones you're in, but hopefully everyone is comfortable today. Special thanks to Dr. Schuyler, our program director, and all the faculty for joining us, taking out time to give advice to our IMGs. Just a couple of quick things. Please keep yourselves on mute. Any questions you guys have, you can always type in the chat and we'll answer at the end. But mostly, hopefully, your questions would be answered when we are talking. And another thing, this webinar will be recorded. To introduce, I am Dr. Gupta. I'm one of the fourth year neurology residents and going to pursue critical care neurology medicine next year, and I'm going to Montefiore. And first, let me begin by introducing Dr. Schuyler, our PD, who has been the program director for Yukon for more than 10 years. And she is one of the AAN neuro leaders, and she is always encouraging more IMGs to apply and always been a beacon for all of us. So welcome, Dr. Schuyler.
Hi, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see everybody. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to join us for this webinar. This is the third time we've done this webinar specifically for IMGs who are applying in neurology. I'm really excited to kind of share some information. We have a very culturally diverse program across our residents and across our faculty. And that's one of the things that I really like the best about our residency program. There's so many amazing, brilliant neurologists in training that come through. And now that I've been program director, this is my 15th year as a neurology program director. I started when I was 5, that's why. I really have kind of seen a lot of the neurologists that have trained with me kind of go on to have successful careers. They're from all over the world. They have so many different amazing positions around the country and around the world at this point. And it's been really a pleasure and an honor for me to be part of their training. So I think, you know, just in terms of the format that applying for residency has taken in the past few years, going all virtual, you know, there are things that make it easier because obviously you don't have to spend a lot of money to fly a lot of places. But it also makes it a little bit harder to connect with programs, to really get to know the residents and the faculty in the programs and really tell if that's really the right place for you. And that's ultimately the goal for you, is to really figure out, you know, if you figured out you want to be a neurologist, that's awesome. You know, that's something that we're all really excited here at Yukon Neurology, because we're all really excited about this specialty. But really the goal for you is to find a place where you will really thrive and feel at home, and really be able to pursue your career goals in an environment where you feel welcomed and encouraged and mentored. So that's really important. So it doesn't matter sort of what is the name on the program or the name on the medical school. It really matters that you find the place, because I've worked with the neurology program directors. I've been leader of our program director group actually for 6 years. I just finished a term as doing that. And I can say without a doubt that we have fabulous programs across the country. And I'm friends with many of the program directors just from all, you know, just across the US, and they all run fabulous programs. And so chances are if you match into neurology, you're going to be in an amazing training program. So it's really about finding sort of what's the right fit for you, and thinking about where in the country in the US you would really want to live, and looking at kind of the area and kind of really feeling out as much as you can the other residents and the attendings, and kind of seeing what the experience of other people have been going through that program. So the goal of this today is really to encourage you, hopefully make you feel a little bit more comfortable going into this process of applying for residency. That's really the goal here. So obviously we're all from UConn Neurology. This isn't our program open house, so that'll be a different day if you're interested in getting more specifics about our residency program. The goal here is really, we have a handful of our residents and a handful of our attendings who are all international medical graduates, and they're going to all share a little bit of information about their experience. Obviously, they've all been successful in matching into neurology residency. They're either current residents or they're faculty. Some of the faculty joining us today were previous residents in our own program. For example, Dr. Asad, who's helping run the webinar along with us, he was a resident in our program, and now he's faculty. So I hopefully that you'll hear some information that's more personal. Obviously, you can look up on the website, like, on ERAS and AMC and NRMP, kind of like the exact dates and deadlines and exactly how to do all that stuff. My goal really for this is for you to hear a little bit of information, just kind of more on the personal side, and get a little bit more of experience, information about experiences that our residents and faculty have had in being successful in this process. So that's really my goal. And I want you to come out of this feeling excited and like you're really, and really looking forward to this process, because it's really, it's nerve-wracking, and I know it causes a lot of anxiety, but it's really an exciting time. And it's an opportunity for you to meet through the interview process a lot of different neurology residents and faculty. And so it's a really great opportunity, not only for the interview itself and trying to match, but really to network and really start building this community, because the neurology is a great community. And so, hopefully you'll get a little bit more excited about kind of going into the whole process. So on that note, I'll turn it over back to Shreya, and she will go through and introduce some of our residents, and they'll each talk to you for a couple of minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Schuyler. So we have like a lot of our amazing residents who will chat about different topics, and hopefully those would be helpful in your career and pursuing your USMLE and like how to go further. To begin with, we have our freshest neuron, our PGY1, Dr. Pooja Jaitwani. She is one of our residents from India, from PJ Government Medical College, Pune. And she is going to talk about USMLE steps. What are the different steps? Basically, like what's the correct time to take them? What was it for her? And she's going to enlighten us further about that.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Shreya. Hi, everyone. It's nice to meet everyone here. Regarding the steps, I feel like I'll give a brief overview. There's a step 1, step 2, and step 3. And what's changed in the past, like due to the COVID pandemic, has been like from CS, I think we changed into OET. So with step 1 and step 2, I feel like what worked for me, and if we're covering it on a global ground, everybody has a different timeline in terms of their medical school and the kind of subjects that are covered every year. So what I would like to say is to keep about 12 to 14 months combined for step 1 and step 2, and try to finish it off in a time frame where a year of graduation is as close to your application cycle as possible. I would say 12 to 14 months, where step 1 still gets importance of about 6 months, even though it's pass and fail. Because the one thing I noticed in my step 2 was that a lot of information that you required to answer step 2 questions were from your step 1. So I'd say like 6 months for step 1, maybe 6 months for step 2, 2 months probably, because everybody tends to have phases in their life where, you're not able to study that much. So buffer time is always required. With OET, the one thing I would like to say is it's fresh, it's different. It's about how you communicate, more or less. So it's relatively easier as compared to your steps, and it would probably take you about 10 to 12 days to prepare for it well enough to clear it up completely. What I personally used was YouTube videos from E2 language. I kind of identified where I thought I would find it a little problematic. For me, that was the writing section of the OET. And I used YouTube videos, and along with that, the practice tests that are present on the official site itself. The one other piece of advice that I would like to give was step 3 is that when you finish your interviews, you have about 5 to 6 months before you start your residency. And I feel like, I know, try and enjoy as much as you can during that period, but also try and finish your step 3 during that period, because residency is challenging and you'd like to give it your all without the stress of an exam lying over you. But more or less, that's about it. And I hope you all do well through it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jaitwani. That is true. Well said about the step 3. It always like looms over. I mean, you still have time in your first year to give that step, but yeah, like the ideal time would be like if you give it before you're done with the exam, and then you can start your residency without the threat of the exam looming over. All righty. So next, I'm going to have Dr. Alberto Varon Miller. He's our senior resident who is planning to pursue vascular and interventional neurology going forward. He is going to be talking about observerships in US, the elective rotations, like how to apply for them, which ones to consider, and how to go by.
Hi, Shreya. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I'm Alberto. I'm from Mexico City. And so I was asked to tell about a little bit of what it entails to obtain US clinical experience. And I want to mention just some brief points of why it's important. I also want to put it out beforehand that it's not an absolute requirement. It definitely makes a CV stronger and makes a stronger application. But I also know some people that have much with no US clinical experience. So we should try our best to get this and try to find these opportunities. But if you are not able to find them yet, then you can also have a successful match. So in my personal experience, there's multiple options for US clinical experience. And I want to say that none of them are clinical. Ideally, what is the goal of this is to be familiar with the US healthcare system, to get to know the doctors from your specialty. And then if you hopefully perform well, you can sometimes get a letter of recommendation. And it's more so the networking of doing the clinical experience rather than just putting in the CV. In my experience, there are some spots sometimes that you can find unexpected experiences. I, for example, went to a national Mexican meeting, and that's where I met someone that is a neurologist here in the US. I spoke with him, I networked with him a little bit, and then I had a chance to go and work with him. So sometimes we look through Reddit and everywhere and try to find where there's experiences or not, but sometimes we find those experiences in the, I would say, most unexpected places. So just keep an eye on those. Overall, there's other opportunities that you can find online. I would say most of them probably are very, very good. I personally also went to one in Miami, which I really enjoyed. Besides of making the CV stronger and make you a better applicant, it also is a very enjoyable experience. It exposes you to multicultural practice, knowing how to participate and see patients from everywhere. And this overall also talks better about yourself. So I would say out there for the experience, to summarize, experience is very, very helpful. It's not absolutely necessary, but if you have it, that definitely makes a better application for yourself. And again, keep an eye out for those opportunities that you may not find online. So that's it. I hope everyone has a successful match, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Varon Miller. Yeah, as Dr. Varon Miller said, that this is not like absolutely necessary, but what it does is it tells you and gives you an experience of how things in US work, how the medical system works here, like what are the things that you need to do, or how your day goes by. So it's kind of like a nice refresher to see like how things are run here. So it's always like a good thing to do some observerships or electives to get in touch with more people and have them know you as well. All right. And now moving on, we have our another PGY1, Dr. Ameya Kale. He is from Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, India, and he is going to shed some light about social etiquette. So COVID made all of our life mostly on Zoom. So he's just going to be talking about what are the key points to note on, like when you're on interviews, how to network, and like some etiquette on interviews, and some tips about social media as well.
Hi, thanks, Dr. Gupta. Wonderful to be here, seeing everyone's fresh faces, no matter what time of day it might be internationally. I can speak a little bit about social media and using that mainly to gain perspective and insight into kind of the day-to-day life at our program, and how the culture or the vibe, so to speak, is at that place. Twitter is rife with resources, especially there's a hashtag called NeuroTwitter, which is quite helpful in kind of just gaining visibility, getting to know who's who in neurology. There's a specific hashtag and a social media group called NMatch, which stands for Neuromatch, which specifically is made up of applicants who are interested in neurology, and there's a section for IMGs as well. And it's great to kind of network with fellow applicants, residents, maybe gain advice and tips about interviews, about applying, which programs to apply to. They have a Discord server, which is fun to join, and kind of just to share experiences about interviews. I found that quite useful. I think Dr. Schuyler has a great podcast on Inside the Match, which again is a very useful resource, providing tips for IMGs especially. Our own residency, UConn has quite an active Twitter and Instagram page, and that you can catch a few pictures of us, or just kind of the hospital, or us getting coffee, and that just helps give more life to it. And the whole point of it is to kind of add that subjective experience, because it really is about the people there and not the physical location or the building. And I found that quite helpful. Of course, there's many opportunities advertised on Twitter as well. I've seen a lot of research positions advertised for a 1 year or 6 month long research positions that many labs advertise, and that can be useful if someone wants to gain research experience before starting residency. And then moving on to kind of Zoom etiquette and virtual interviews, especially this year, I think most interviews will be virtual. So the whole point of the interview is to present the best version of yourself, but also to present yourself and be yourself. And tied into that goes the lighting, the background, having a stable internet connection, a stable base for your laptop and camera. Of course, that doesn't mean you go overboard with that. Even if you have a laptop which is quite fairly recent, 4 or 5 years, if you can have a WhatsApp video chat on your laptop, you most likely will be able to do a Zoom interview on it. I would suggest getting lighting. So I got a $25 ring light off of Amazon, and I found that quite useful. I just placed it behind the laptop screen, and just it illuminated my face. And most laptop cameras don't do well with low lighting settings, which you may find yourself often in. I remember waking up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. for interviews, and you just want to be prepared for every eventuality as well. So just have backups of backups, have a wired audio connection, wired earphones, have your phone ready for mobile data in case power runs out and the Wi-Fi goes out. And then just test everything out before the interview. So test your camera, test your lighting, test the frame, do mock interviews, have the friends or family, have someone who can objectively look at you and tell you what's working, what's not. And then just practice. That's the key. Really, it's a lot of nerves. I remember one of my first few interviews, several of my most of my first half, I would say. I remember my palms sweating and just not being able to type in the Zoom password to get into the meeting. But trust me when I say it's just experience, and the nerves will go down with more and more experience, and you get comfortable speaking to a camera and not someone face to face. And lastly, I would say be yourself. It's very easy to say, very hard to do, especially interviews and with anxiety. But something that helped me was having kind of things that mean a lot to you, maybe in the background as a conversation starter. For example, I had my guitar in my background. It is subjective, it may help, it may not. But I found it useful as something to start a conversation and then kind of make myself comfortable. And that interest then went, like talking about guitar, went to neurology and so on. So yeah, end of the day, it's just practice and be sure to test everything out. And best of luck, everyone.
Wow, Amir, that was some real advice. I loved it.
Thank you. Thank you, Asim.
Yeah, that is true. Like, so your interview goes by like how you want it to go. Like, sure, they want to ask you questions, but they want to see like how much you want to put in as well. Like I like to paint, and every time I would start a conversation, I would say like, oh, I love to paint. Like, can I show you pictures? And then the conversation would go towards that. So thank you so much, Dr. Hale, for all the amazing tips. All right. Next we have Dr. Ankush Maheshwari. So he's one of our senior residents, and he's planning to go for a fellowship for movement disorder. He is from GMC Amritsar, one of the medical colleges in India. And he's going to talk about personal statement, CV, like what are the points or key points, what not to write, what to write, and kind of how to compose your personal statements.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you, Shreya, for the introduction, and it is such a great pleasure to be here, I should say, first of all. Yeah, as Shreya mentioned, I'm from originally from India, born and brought up there, and as being there from that part of the world, you know, like I've had my challenges to talk about myself, write about myself in like cohesive way, so that people would understand and also get my story. So you know, going to the personal statement, it is definitely challenging for some people. So I would say what I've learned is definitely to start early. You know, like try to start like a couple of weeks or even months in advance. I've started like a couple of months in advance, and then when I've written my first draft, it was basically like 3 pages long, and I don't think anybody would be able to read that long. But I've had people review it. I've reviewed it myself almost multiple times to get to like that 1 page of a personal statement that summarizes your whole perspective and your journey, and is like fluent as well. Definitely don't shy away from asking people's help. I think that is one way you can network. You know, talk to your med school alumni, talk to residents, talk to, you know, as Amir mentioned, there are resources available online that can help you, and they can provide you mentorship online, who can not only go through your PS, they can share their PS with you. Some people would be so open to it, and they will read multiple manuscripts, you know, multiple times, so they can help you any way they can. And I personally, I've had troubles with like the language as well. So I think in my own mother tongue, which is not English. So definitely like having someone who's fluent in English. It doesn't have to be in somebody in medicine. It can be somebody outside too. Like I've spoken to my cousins who are professionals, but they have nothing to do with medicine. They've helped me greatly with like the whole language and fluency of my personal statement. And at the end of the day, it is a personal statement, as the name suggests. So it has to be your own journey, your own perspective. I would say, like, writing not just facts, like, US is a great country, we all know, yes, but writing what you learned from it, what you gained from your experiences, clinical experiences, your hobbies. And it doesn't have to be something life and death, like it doesn't have to be something so impactful. It can be a simple thing that can be most impactful. Like, I recently was reviewing a personal statement where they, not reviewing, like helping my colleague, and they were writing about their dance, their hobby as dance, just dance being, making them as a whole, and they connected somehow with their specialty of interest, which was amazing, and that still stuck to my mind. So I think even like simpler things can get stuck in people's mind. They can give they can talk about it outside of your specialty of interest. Obviously, writing about your own specialty of interest is important, but also like giving an insight into what you are is, I think, is what the personal statement is all about. The things that are missing from your CV, basically. Your CV would mention everything, the numbers, the rotations that you've had, the med school years, and the experiences. But I think personal statement just gives that kind of this wholesome insight into what you are as a person. And talking about the CV, again, the same concept, following a certain structure in your resume is helpful, but also like not only focus on the experiences in your specialty of interest, in your clinical experiences, but I would say focus on experiences outside also is important. Volunteer work, research work, hobbies, I don't know. I think the CV format has changed a little bit. They've played around with the My ERAS now, including, the supplementary ERAS with the experiences that have changed your life. But I would say in the CV, if you have certain hobbies that you want to talk about and bring out in your interview, writing them in a specific way would help you a lot. Again, like I said, people love to talk about everything outside of medicine too. So definitely your hobbies or your volunteer work can spark that conversation that can make can get stuck in your interviewer's mind. So that does really help you, and ask people for help. I've asked my alumni who graduated 10 years ago in my med school, and he didn't even know me, but I just kept on bothering him. But he was like, they were grateful, they were great in helping me. So definitely ask people's help, I would say.
Thank you so much. Those were very helpful tips, Dr. Maheshwari. And I agree, like you do not have to write any tragic story or anything like that, or someone who has been diagnosed with something, but just whatever like floats your boat, whatever like made you like what you are today, whatever made you pursue like medicine and neurology. As we move forward, we have our PGY2, Dr. Ayatollah Ahmed. She is from Cairo University from Egypt, and she is going to tell us about letters of recommendation, who to ask for, when to ask for, and like which ones to choose. And she's going to talk about those.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Shreya. I'm Aya, as Shreya presented. So we all know that letters of recommendation are a very important part of the application. So it's always good to ask for the letter of recommendations from mentors that really know you and mentors that you worked with, because I think an important aspect of the letter is to be personalized to represent who you are. Not just professionally, but it's very important to represent who you are personally as well, because at the end of the day, we work in a team, we work in a big family. So it's very important that the letter express your work ethics, how you work in a team, as well as a physician, as how are you as a person. So for me, I did some rotations in Egypt and then some rotations in the US, neurology rotations in the US as well. And I asked my mentors who really knows me, who I worked with and did projects with for letters. And don't be shy to ask, always ask. Worst case scenario, they will be busy and they won't have time to write, but most of them honestly are very helpful. So just ask for letters. And then I think everyone is different and every journey is different, of course, but it's very important to when you start working with them, just tell them that you're applying to this match, and most of them are very understanding, and they would really be happy to write you a letter of recommendations. And then do something, try to do extra projects with them if you can. And then try to work with them as much as you can so they know you as a person, as I mentioned before. Some of my friends, I got my letters of recommendations mostly from neurology, but I know some of my friends who applied in neurology who got their letters of recommendations from different rotations from internal medicine as well. If you think that the mentor that you worked with knows you really well, you can definitely ask for an internal medicine rotation or other rotations. I think at least one of the letters should be from neurology mentor, especially in the US. Again, it's not something super important. It's preferably, but it's okay to ask for your neurology mentors in your country as well. Yes, basically. Of course, the letters are waived, so we don't know what the mentor would write in your letter, but it's always definitely my most important piece of information is to ask a mentor who really knows you personally.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. And yes, like as you mentioned, like it does not have to be a neurology letter. It has to be someone who knows you, and you know, like that they will write a letter that will reflect who you are and how you are apart from your personal statement and CV. So not just like reflecting like, you know, what are the points that are already mentioned, but what else they can offer so that whoever is thinking about hiring you as a resident, like they know what they're getting. And so we were trying to design like this talk as like steps emulating like your journey, like how to do like steps, how to get letters. So another thing that we felt that like all of us like are worried about is like, fine, like you are a resident now, you're a PGY1, you were hired, but now like the main things like how to live your life, where to get a car, how to get an apartment. So and again, as a foreign medical graduate, like to get, you know, like a social security number, to get like how to get all of these things and how to navigate. So I'm going to have our chief resident, Dr. Cabrera, talk about some of those things and like what all did he need for like a car, like credit card, and your like security number and apartment and those kind of things.
Thank you, Shreya. I really appreciate the opportunity of being here today. I feel so old now that I hear the experiences from everyone else. When we applied, I think we were the last class that we had interviews in person. We didn't have the virtual format, so we had to travel. And actually it was challenging because right when we matched, it was when the pandemic broke. So we had to look for a lot of things like looking for apartments, looking for a car, and trying to establish a credit score here during the beginning of the pandemic. So something very important that I need to explain is that here you will definitely need a credit score. So one of the main advices that I always give is that as soon as you get your social security number, which is something that you will work with your program, you will have to apply and then you will get your social security number. As soon as you do that, it will be very important that you get a credit card so you can start building your credit score. There are different ways to apply, and there might be some types of credit cards and some banks that might be a little bit more difficult. The ones that I've figured that are the easy credit cards to apply and to get approved for are Discover. And also there are some banks issue these secure credit cards where you can deposit the amount of credit that you want to to have on that credit card, and that they will give you a credit card with that amount, and basically you will start building credit with that card. That will be very important to do as soon as you get your social security number. Regarding looking for apartments, again, we applied. I think that I was looking for an apartment right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was very challenging. But luckily now we have the internet, and most places will have some way of giving you virtual tours of the apartments. Something that actually helped me was that as soon as we matched, we knew who were going to be our co-residents. So we formed a WhatsApp group where we kind of discussed like which areas we were looking into to rent apartments. And you will also get help from senior residents that will guide you and will tell you, oh, try to avoid this area, or this area is nicer, or most of the residents will stay in X apartment. And that is pretty helpful. So as soon as you match, try to connect, especially with your co-residents, because they are going to be like your family. And it's going to be a nice experience if you try to stick together. Regarding getting a car, it will depend, I think, on every person's situation. Some people will be more comfortable leasing a car. Some other people will want to eventually buy their own car so they can own their car. So in those instances, it's easier to finance the car. But again, for both instances, you might need to get a credit score, although it's not completely necessary. If you get a credit card and you start building your credit score, the financing and the interest rate might be lower whenever you try to apply for a car. But again, it's a matter of I believe, like networking and making sure that you speak with your co-residents because everyone's in the same path. But again, there's a lot of information now in the internet that you can look for apartments, you can look for used cars. And but again, one of the main things that I definitely recommend is getting a credit card as soon as possible so you can start building a credit score.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cabrera. Now I'm gonna have Dr. Daniel Asad. He is our amazing stroke neurologist to kind of introduce some of our faculty and like hear from the faculty, their personal experiences, and also guide us further in our journeys as IMGs as we go further.
Great. Thank you so much, Shreya. Thanks to all our residents. You guys are all superstars, and I'm so happy that, you know, all the IMGs are getting to see, all our resident superstars who went through the same journey, and I hope you guys got to learn from their amazing tips. So now we'll move on to the next section where I would like to talk to some of my friends and colleagues and sort of talk about the second part of their journey, which is being faculty and leaders in their field. So without further ado, I'll first ask my friend and dear colleague, Dr. Tapan Mehta. For those of you who don't know, he is both a vascular neurologist as well as an endovascular neurologist obviously in the field of NIR. He's also the Director of Research and Innovation at the Iron Neuroscience Institute at Hartford Healthcare. So Dr. Mehta, firstly, thank you for joining us. And I think it'd be very helpful for so many of the people on the call here to hear a little bit about your journey, not only about in terms of getting a residency, but also excelling in research. And something that you also did was an advanced degree, a master's in public health. So a little bit about your journey and what words of wisdom do you have for all of us?
Thank you, Dr. Asad. Thank you for having me. Actually, last year I was first time invited, and I enjoyed it. And last week, Daniel asked me, like, will you be able to come on board? And I was sure, I'll make time. And this is really fascinating to see myself 10, 12 years ago, what I was doing. So I think it has been a great journey. A lot of right decisions, wrong decisions, but everything fell in place and fell in my favor. That's what I would say, because I certainly did not have any of these advices that you are getting. And these are very important points that you are learning today. It's almost like, if I had these advices, maybe I would have been at the same place where I wanted to be. But, I think a lot of anxiety could have been relieved. So you're getting very important information. So I think, first of all, how my journey started, again, I wanted to understand a little bit more on US healthcare system. I was definitely interested. I wanted to do something with brain. That's how it started. And then I wanted to use my hand. That was the second thing that came up. And that's kind of a very straightforward path, how things led to neurology and neurointervention and stroke afterwards. By the way, first of all, I just want to, because I was quoted for research, I'm just going to share that JAMA just published a trial. It's called Eptol. I don't know if it is a medication that is going to be regenerative medication for stroke patients. So they started showing positive results. So as everyone is saying, neurology is getting more and more exciting. And in last 10 years, I think all the subspecialties, not just cerebrovascular disease, we have treatment for dementia now. We have treatment for multiple sclerosis. We have, excellent epilepsy medication. So you are making a huge difference in patient care management, patients' lives, and patients are very thankful to you because, one difference you make in their life, they will be thankful to you for rest of your life. So that's very rewarding. Every day you get a lot of rewarding comments from your patients, your colleagues. I think the way I would say in a short summary and in a light way is, when I was at your stage, I had a lot of fear, and I had similar to what you have. And thanks to our program here and how I grew here, that fear started kind of getting away, and it was very helpful. My residency interview was different. My first residency interview was different, and when I went out for my fellowship interview, I almost spoke my mind. And I'll give you an example. When I was applying for endovascular fellowship, my program director asked that, why do you want to do endovascular? You have this trouble, that trouble, you're going to have, so much challenges moving forward in your career. And I basically said, if I want to get married to someone, I really don't have to have a good rational reason. So I just love doing this. And that's the only explanation I can give you, that there is no rationality behind what I want to do, which is true to the day. And the people who know me, they know that it is true. So, that came out of my mouth because I did have courage to say that. And I knew that people backing me were very strong, and they helped me getting ready for the fellowship. So I think I want to share with all of you that, if you choose career in neurology, it's very bright looking. There are lots of ups to it, but also trust the system, and you work hard, you will get what you need. So, and if you have any questions, there are so many things you can talk about in residency, but I want to see if anyone has any specific questions that I can answer. Anyone?
They can also they can also sort of type it in the chat. One quick question, and I know you obviously have to go to that other meeting as well, but Dr. Mehta, I wanted to ask you very quickly about sort of your, a lot of people keep asking, especially FMGs, about research, and you obviously, even before you started, was a prolific researcher. So any tips and tricks on how you navigated that process?
So again, it's the same concept that has worked for me since I came here. It's persistence. And I would say that I did research that was initially not meaningful. It was just to get a paper out, just to get it on my CV. But then, with persistence, the importance of research, the methodologies, and then really, do I want to make an impact? So at this point, I don't have to do research. I can practice very well, and I can make money. But again, if you are persistent, you will continue to get better. And I think one of the major important plus point of US healthcare system is, if you are being persistent, you will get opportunity. I think that And again, I cannot be thankful to, getting the first opportunity here to Dr. Skylar and, this program. But again, you will start doing research, start with case reports, start with, extracting data, and you are not going to come up with curing dementia on day one. Maybe you will. And if you do so, that's great. But the reality is it's unlikely that we're going to cure dementia on day one, or we're going to cure stroke. But again, you start understanding, you start asking more important questions. And that's essentially what starts happening as you grow in your career. On day one, the questions I asked, pardon my language, but they were really stupid. But then they started getting more and more refined. And then I started understanding that, which questions are more important, which questions are not more important. And to date, every day I'm learning, some of the questions that are, really important to ask, and some of them are not. And the other thing I would mention about research is understand your strength. And I'll give you a simple example. I can analyze data, I can ask good questions, and I can get everything in line, but I'm not a good writer. And even today, a few weeks ago, I asked Dr. Asad to help me write an editorial that I was invited for. So you have to understand what your strengths are. It's a teamwork. It's a teamwork everywhere, in clinical medicine, in research. So if you learn how to be part of a team and you prove that this is your strong point, you will have really good outcome. That's the summary of it.
Well, and clearly one of your big strengths is humility. And despite even all your accomplishments, you remain so humble. But I really appreciate Dr. Mehta for taking out the time today for all the prospective applicants. Next, we have my friend and colleague, Dr. Sandhya Mela. Dr. Mela, who went to medical school in India, then is also a vascular neurologist as well as a headache specialist, and she's the program director of our headache fellowship here as well at our program. So, Dr. Mela, please, without further ado, if you could share some words of wisdom for people on this call. Thank you. Dr. Mela, I don't think we can hear your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, you need to learn this from me, that don't do all these disasters in your interviews. I was going to talk about my lighting disaster, and I now had the microphone disaster. But anyway, I'm sitting in a new office today. I usually don't do this on Zoom meetings, but I also didn't have to interview on Zoom meetings. So it worked out for me that I had in-person interviews when I interviewed. But what I was saying when I was mute is that I'm really glad to be here. Good morning, everyone. And this is my first time doing this webinar, but I will ask Dr. Asad to please invite me every year. There's so much to learn from our residents. I learned a lot about social media. I'm not a great social media person, but I will take the tips from our PGY1, Dr. Kale. So what I would like to talk about is be yourself. So I do have a personal experience to share, and I think this will be very valuable to you all. I did not match in the first application season, and I didn't have many interviews, but I had interview from the place I was working actively as a research assistant, not just an observership, but an actual job of being research assistant. I was working with residents all the time in enrolling patients in clinical trial. And I did not match that year, unfortunately. And the one reason that the program director gave was that I was too shy. And people who know me today would not believe this statement. So it was shocking. I don't think I was shy, but I think there was a huge cultural barrier in how we talk to the attendings in India, where you can't really be open and friendly, whereas it's not just accepted, it's actually encouraged here. So just the way you talk was taken very differently, and it wasn't taken by them differently. It was probably projected by myself differently. So I think that's the biggest lesson I learned from that interview season, and I tried to be myself more than how I need to project myself. So the advice is, or what I would say is, the nervous you is not real you, and the program for any program to rank you higher would be real you, not nervous you. So yes, it's easier said than done, but you definitely would not give good impression if you're nervous. So just be yourself. Everyone who has done medical school is intelligent. You know, just project yourself. And I think that the second piece that a lot of people are nervous about, especially with COVID, lack of traveling and everything, is not finding enough opportunities to get clinical experience in the United States. We get a lot of messages as faculty, IMG faculty, can you ask your hospital to do, if they have opportunity for observership. I think it's important to be in this environment that makes you feel much easier to talk to everyone once you have, you know, spent some time in this environment. But if you're not getting that opportunity, don't be nervous. Don't make that as the only thing. I worked for 6 months in a neurology hospital in India. As a junior resident. For people who are from India, they know what junior resident is. Once you finish your med school and internship, you can work as a physician. And I think that was my most important clinical experience that helped me in matching in neurology, because I had firsthand experience. I could talk more confidently about it than just being an observer and watching everything. So if you're not getting an observership, it's fine. Just find an opportunity locally where you can experience what you love, and you will be able to talk more confidently about it. And I think other than that, this lighting, no, I'll go buy that light now, because yes, don't do this in your interviews. Please, if you have never traveled to the United States, because obviously now we do not have that. In our times, we had to give step to CS, where we had to visit before interviews. If you haven't, just come for a fun travel so that you know the culture before you are interviewing, if that's possible. If that's not possible financially, obviously that's not a requirement, but it's nice to know the place when you're talking about it. And I can take any questions if you have any.
Dr. Mehta, I think that's great and fantastic advice. And obviously, those who know you now, that you're like, you know, not only a very good public speaker, but a very effective public speaker. And I think it would be very quickly, if you can just sort of mention on what specifically did you work on, you know, in the second round, that you not only excelled, but also matched and excelled, and you continue to. So what specifically did you change about that? Because I think that's a very, very important point that you raise.
Mm-hmm. So what I mean, I was working in research, so I actively worked. By then I had publications as well, and I worked more in research. But what I did was I did spend more time on floors with the residents, and if I had any opportunity to talk to the attendings, not just the ones I was working but other attendings, I put myself out more and I talked to them more, so that perception of me being shy goes away. I did. The other thing I did was in the same group, all the not just medical, but in the staff, there were other friends I made who were from the United States, and I spent more time with them to learn the culture on how things. I guess once you spend time with people, you know how things work, how you talk, and you just learn from them in conversations. So I think that was another experience I gained, and those friends from that time are still my best friends.
That's really, really helpful advice. Thank you, Dr. Mehta, and I'm sure it would be sort of key for all the people on the call and other prospective applicants to sort of work on that. Next, of course, and I think a lot of people have been waiting for, is a section that we kept, which I think would be very important for a lot of questions that I noticed in the chat, is to hear from Dr. Schuyler. As many of you already know, that Dr. Schuyler is sort of a leader in the field of sort of neurology and also med ed. and has served as the head of the Consortium of Neurology Program Directors and has multiple leadership positions at the AAN and ACGME in terms of reviewing the application process and the residency sort of process. So Dr. Schuyler, like, of course, there are so many questions to ask, but I just, want you to sort of tell the applicants as to how you look at the process, how you review applications, and what are some of the key elements that you're looking for, because obviously everybody wants to hear from you about that, because that in many ways is the ultimate sort of step for them.
Sure. I'll try. I don't know if I'll be able to get to everything, but I'll try to hit the main points. And also keep your eye out. I'm chairing the virtual recruitment work group for the AAN. So our specialty specific statement for neurology that will be in alignment with the AMC guidelines should be coming out hopefully by September 1st. There are a lot of people that need to review it and approve it before it can be released as a consensus statement. So we're working on that. So keep your eye out. Just in terms of the applications, we have a lot of great questions. A lot of them are very specific. So I'm going to tell you that I am only one program director. There are a whole bunch of us. We probably all are getting between 600 and 1,200 applications each. So just to know kind of the idea of the volume. And also we're getting flooded with emails. So if you're emailing program directors, please don't be offended if we can't reply. So just if you think about it, we're all clinicians. Our primary focus when we're at work is our own residents. So we're running training programs where we are training our residents to be neurologists. And then when recruitment hits, it's like on top of all of that too. So just keep in mind that it's an overwhelming time for programs when it's application season. So really the best way of communicating to programs is making sure you have a very strong, concise ERAS application that conveys who you are, because that is the primary source. It's really hard to kind of field Twitter messages and emails and things like that. And program directors really aren't probably going to have the time to do that. So just make sure you have a great application that really represents you. There are a lot of questions about how should I do or what should I put on my application? What has to be on the application? There's no set thing. So what we do is we review the applications holistically. I think if there's one thing that we all agree on is that we want applicants that are excited to be neurologists. So if it looks like your application is to internal medicine, and it primarily is, and neurology is kind of a second backup for you, it usually comes out pretty clearly in the application. I want to mention letters of recommendation. I think the minimum is 3. If you can have at least one from a neurologist, I think that kind of supports your interest. Supports your case that you are interested in neurology. If you have letters of recommendation from outside neurology, that's fine. But as a piece of advice, I'd recommend that you have the letter writer put that you're applying to neurology in your letter. So I can tell you that I get letters from neurologists saying, or from psychiatrists saying that this applicant is applying in psychiatry. And that's pretty obvious whether or not that person's going to get an interview, because if they want to be a psychiatrist, then I don't think they're applying to the right program. So I think make sure that your application reflects a genuine interest in our field. About the publications, if you have projects you've worked on inside or outside of neurology, it doesn't matter sort of what the research is, what the activities are. What you need to show is that you are active and engaged in something that's interesting to you. Okay. It's great if that includes some neurology things. I think that makes for a stronger application, but seeing an application that shows that you have active volunteer work, even if it's outside of neurology, if you, are active in, education, different types of research, it really doesn't matter. It's not like you have to have, like, if this person hasn't published a case report or presented a paper that we're tossing the application. That's not how it works. Like, we are looking for clinicians. We are looking for people that are going to be awesome to work with, that are awesome doctors, that are going to work well as a team, that are going to be really excited to train with us. That's kind of sort of the key point that runs through it all. Everybody has a different story. And so everybody's going to have different experiences coming in, and you need to share that and who you are, and then leave it up to the programs to decide kind of who they're looking for. If your application stands out to them, then that's awesome. Maybe it will be a good fit. If there's a program director that really wants somebody that has a PhD and has at least 10 publications at a minimum, and you don't, then that's probably not the right program for you. If that's not sort of the track you're on. So, I mean, I think it kind of, we're looking for a good fit as well. Just in terms of the content of your application, I think you really need to, and I'm sorry, I'm going over time a little bit. You need to make sure that you understand everything that you wrote in your application, because it's all fair game for the interviews. So if you wrote about a research project as being a meaningful experience, be prepared to discuss that in an articulate way. If a chair that you're interviewing with is going to, I'm picking a chair, but like if you are meeting with the senior neurologist for an interview, chances are they're going to be, tell me about XYZ research, like what, so be prepared to discuss absolutely any part of your application. If you present a patient case in your personal statement, which some people do, some people don't, if you do present a case, be prepared to be able to discuss that case with a neurologist who's, I've been a neurologist for 20 years. And, a lot of the people that you're going to be interviewing with know a lot more than you do about neurology. So if you're going to talk about a specific patient, make sure, you kind of understand the case and the localization before you decide to present that information. So I recommend that as well. The question about signals and geographic preference, I think, so it's all part of the same application. There's not a supplemental ARS this year. It's all part of the ARS application where you put in the meaningful experiences, and you can, for adult neurology, you can signal 3 programs. My advice for that would be, don't try to game the system. The idea of the preference signaling is for you to communicate to programs that you really want an interview there. So if there are 3 programs that you would be really upset if they passed you over and didn't interview you, pick those. I think that's the whole point of it. I think there are people out there blogging and stuff like that about sort of how do you play the game of how do you use your signals and things like that. The whole idea is that you're picking programs that you really want to give that extra nudge, be like, I'm really interested in meeting you. And it's for the interview, it's not for matching. So it's just a signal to say you're interested in interviewing there. So it's completely independent of ranking. You might interview there and be like, no, I hate it. I don't want to go there. So just because you signal the program doesn't mean that that program is going to be at the top of your rank list, and that's not expected. It's really just to signal your application that little extra, interest. And you can get interviews at plenty of places without signaling them. 3 is a small number. For geographic preference, the same thing. Don't try to game it. If there's an area of the country that you really want to live in, put it. And if you have a reason for that, write it down. And, there's also, I think I've seen some blogs about, looking at number of programs in each region and statistical probability if you signal X region, or I don't really know sort of all about that stuff, but I would say that just be honest and be yourself on the application. And that's probably the best way to go. Don't pick a geographic a region because you think there's a probability associated with it. Maybe everybody's doing that and read the same article, and I'll pick that same spot too. Like, just pick where you're interested in. And if you genuinely do not have a geographic preference, you can state that. Like, you are open to move absolutely anywhere, then you can do it. In terms of, there's several questions about virtual observerships. I think that if that's a way that you can experience US healthcare system and you don't have another opportunity to do it, then I think that it's worthwhile for you personally, hopefully, to gain that experience. That's the most important part. I think that programs sometimes get letters of recommendation for somebody who did a virtual rotation, and it depends how well they got to know you. If you did a bunch of meetings online one-on-one with them, they watched you do patient encounters through a telerotation, and they're really able to comment on your clinical skills that way, or comment on a project they did with you, even if it was in the virtual format. I think that there's value to that, both for you personally and potentially through a letter of recommendation. And then last thing I will say, just to reassure you about, I know we talked about lighting and microphones and stuff like that. We're all human beings. I'm a human being. I have technical problems sometimes too. Sometimes like something's not working, or, I don't have the best lighting. I mean, the spot I'm in right now isn't the best lighting. I'm at home and my kids are still asleep. I'm trying to be in a spot in the house where, I'm not going to wake them up. So, I think we all have lives, and program directors have lives too. And we're people. And so things happen. Like if a Zoom call gets disconnected, it's like not the end of you for meeting that program. Like, I think I would take some advice about minimizing distractions and trying to, kind of frame yourself in a way that you're able to, so that it's not a distraction for the person interviewing you, looking at something else, or, you know, something else going on behind you, or, you know, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't worry too much about like, is the ring light in the right spot? I bought one actually, and it super distracted me because I could see it on my glasses. And then so I tried using a ring light and I was like, nope. So I just used my laptop camera. And it seems to have worked okay. Like I think over well over 300 virtual interviews in at this point, a lot more than that if you include all our fellowship interviews and faculty interviews I do online. So I've met hundreds and hundreds of people one-on-one doing interviews. And it's really not a big deal if there's a technical issue. So I just want you to like not be super nervous about that part of it. Do what you can, but like things happen and there might be a thunderstorm, or, you know, there's a power surge, or your router like needs to be reset. I don't know, like there's so many things that can go wrong. Just don't worry about it. Like it will happen, and you will get through it. And it might happen to me. And then we just restart the call and everything like that. So I think hopefully I got through most of it. Dr. Asad, is there any major point that I didn't get to? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to follow everything in the chat because I'm talking, but I don't want to go over it more than we did.
Yeah, no, I think you did actually. The only question, the last one that came, you already answered about telerotations and virtual observerships. And I think that is very, very helpful to sort of hear from you about like the holistic review, which you sort of focused on, which I think is key. And, we hope that all the prospective applicants will, go through this process smoothly. Dr. Gupta?
Thank you, Dr. Asad. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you all the participants for taking up the time and listening to us. Thank you all the residents and our faculty for giving us very helpful advice and tips. And hopefully that would help you and like would have answered a lot of the questions that you might have. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to tell that you will hear about our open house about the program soon on the social media platforms. Just keep a lookout for Twitter and Instagram, and we'll post for the dates of the open house as well. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.